What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock, what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off what the trend is showing. I'm also going to talk about why Tesla was down so hard, and it did drop a little bit harder than a lot of people expected because of the CPI report, the overall trend of the market, and many other factors like that. I'm going to break down the CPI report that's coming out in just 2 days and talk about why this is very big for Tesla, for the overall market, for the stock market, for the Fed, our economy, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to end the video with some tweets from the man, the myth, the legend himself, Elon Musk, which go to show that the EV sector is still growing on a day-to-day basis. Now, before I break any of this down, before I get into any details about Musk, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I do apologize if the audio is not the best. I am recording this from a different location, so there may be some background noise and things like that. I would also appreciate it if you guys smash that like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And also, this is not financial advice. Anything I say is all just for educational purposes only. Do not take it as financial advice. And the last thing is check out the sponsor of this video, which is Mumu. If you sign up and deposit $100, you're guaranteed up to 10 free stocks, each worth up to $2,500. The best part is, out of the 10 free stocks, 5 are going to come from the wheel right here, meaning you could win 5 free Tesla shares, 5 free AMC shares, or a mix of all of them. Now, with that out of the way, looking at Tesla, this thing's down over 6.55%. And I do apologize for what I thought this thing would end up doing. In my videos prior to that, I talked about how I did see downside for maybe Tuesday and Wednesday because we were going into the CPI report. And I did think that the market would be very apprehensive. And I did anticipate some downside for SPY and etc. But I thought Tesla would be pretty bullish, or at least make a very bullish move to about 780 to that 780 to 800 range, get a rejection off that, then start to downward trend after that. But I didn't anticipate it to drop this hard. I thought that because of the Twitter deal getting terminated. If you look at the after hours, let me actually show you what happened during after hours. Tesla was actually pushing up to that 778 range. You could see how it was pushing up so hard. Then it ended up actually dropping at the very last minute all the way back down, and it did actually push up to like 760 going into like the open, and after that it just got destroyed throughout the entire day. It dropped all the way down to 700. I didn't think it would drop that hard, but that is what we ended up seeing. And we are at a very, very key support zone, which is 700 as of right now. So the question is, what is the market going to do for tomorrow? And that's where things become very important, all right? Because we have something huge coming out. And I just want to remind you about the CPI report, all right? The CPI report, and if you don't know what that is, that's one of the major inflationary measures that many economists and many investors use when it comes to actually dissecting the markets. They use CPI as a very good inflationary measure to actually show what the future strategies are going to be for the Fed, what state the economy is in, and many factors like that. So, with that said, CPI does take into account gas prices and energy prices and things like that a lot more than PCE data or other metrics, right? So, with that said, we're actually anticipating a hot inflationary report. And there's one main reason. It's not just because of inflation collectively. The one thing that's kind of inflating the report would be the energy sector. Gas prices just going to the absolute moon. Look at this chart right here showing the all grades, all formulations of retail gas prices. And you could see there's been this massive upward trend that continued up until June. So this is just as of June 2022. And look at the dollars per gallon just going up and up. This is where it was for May, where this dot is right here. Let me just get that to stay. This is May and then this is June. And I mentioned this in a previous video. The mean price, the average for May was $4.55. For June, it was over $5, showing a 10% increase. So many people are anticipating to see inflation increase, or the CPI report. And as I've stated before, CPI can be manipulated. It has a tendency of either overstating or understating inflation. So with that said, it's expected to be about 8.6%. And I don't know if it's going to be perfectly there. It could be around 8.6%. It could be a little bit higher. For me personally, I think it's going to be at least 8.6%. It's probably going to be higher than that. And because it's probably going to be higher, that's most likely going to cause a big reaction in the markets. And they're already starting to show that reaction. Now, what you'll notice is that a lot of sources right now are acting like the reason why we saw the slide from Tesla is because of the fact that the Elon Musk deal is off, and that's not true whatsoever. So don't fall for arguments like this. It has more to do with the overall market, the price actions that we saw, fear going forward. And I don't think that the whole Twitter deal played the massive role in Tesla dropping in its share price. Typically, it would actually go up if that would be the case because Musk wouldn't be as busy, but that's not what ended up happening. So, with that said, what on earth is the future outlook for Tesla? And that's where I want to talk about this. So, first, let's go to the SPY. You'll notice that the SPY is now respecting a bit of a downward trend. It ended up dipping below this support zone at around 385. And since then, it's been just kind of getting, it has a lot of room to continue dropping, but it did also form this gap right here. So this big gap that formed right here is an indication that it might actually test this range again before dipping. But as of right now, I'm not really seeing it doing that. It looks more like it's going to continue this downward trend from a technical standpoint, because if I bring up the daily candles, what you'll notice is when I zoom in, when this thing was pushing up, all right, we had confirmation of something. That is, the volume was just dropping and dropping and dropping, kind of like moments in the past where we saw similar moves like that. For instance, like right here, the volume was like pushing up and it started to slow down right here, and then it continued to just drop after that. So as the SPY was pushing up every day, we had all these green days. We had some temporary relief, and the volume was just going down and down and down. And we could see it just dried up for today. The volume was just not there. And as a result, that's a very bearish indication, especially as we almost made this double top like formation. In fact, the top right here was a little higher than this one, so you could actually draw out a downward trend. So it is looking more bearish, and it does look like the SPY is going to continue to see some bearish price action over the next couple of days. Now, as a result of that, how is the NASDAQ looking as well? NASDAQ is very similar. It was down about 2.26%. That's pretty hard. I mean, the NASDAQ and SPY should not be down or like up over 2%. Typically, they should move like 0.3%, 0.5%. So the volatility is insane. The move down was pretty big for NASDAQ. And a lot of these tech stocks, a lot of companies out there which are EVs, they actually got destroyed today. They took massive hits. And you can see, if I become more meticulous, you can see that the Nasdaq closed very similar to this very, very key zone, which is that $11,374 level. I know it's a very, very unusual level, but that is where the Nasdaq ended up closing at. And right now, if it doesn't hold this level going into tomorrow, we actually have a bar below that. We have a wick, below that. That's an indication that we may continue to see some downside. So I am now a little bit more in favor of more downside after the CPI report that's coming forward. And we may see a bit of a continuation of this going into tomorrow. Now, the problem with this claim is the fact that Tesla's in a very, very low level. I mean, we're already at 700, and that's typically where Tesla should get a bit of a bounce. So what I'm anticipating is we may have a pretty okay opening. Maybe Tesla jumps up like $10 to $25, which is fine, but I do expect a bit of a bleed off to continue because tomorrow is going to be the last day, the last full day before the report comes out. Because remember, the report, the CPI report, it's coming out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. So right before the market opens, it's already going to be out. So because there's so much uncertainty, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit of a bleed off tomorrow. So let me actually draw this out for you just to give you guys a better view of this. You can see this is what Tesla's looking like. We should maybe get a bit of a bounce off 700 going into open. I think this thing could test 715 to 720. And after we touch that zone, I expect this thing to start dropping again and kind of trading sideways in this range between 715 to 700. And we could actually start to drop even below 700 if the market is that bearish, because the next key zone would be that 680 level. And that's actually a very key zone for Tesla. It has had a tendency of testing that level and actually bouncing off that. So just to draw it out, this is what I think is the most probable outcome. Tesla getting a bit of a push up into open to like 715, 720. Getting a rejection off that, trading kind of sideways, and it may continue to drop. If it doesn't hold 700, this thing is most likely going to head to around that 685 to 680 range. So be prepared for that. But right now, this is kind of like what the chart is showing us because of how bearish things are looking and how uncertain the market is essentially. So this in turn would be the more in my opinion, realistic target. If we're ready to see a bit of a bounce, we have to see how this thing actually tests 720, 715. If this thing breaks it, then 730 is still a possibility. Because when we are down this hard, seeing a bit of a bounce is not necessarily unheard of. But right now, like I said, I just think that more downside seems imminent, regardless of what happens tomorrow based off the CPI report. I think it's going to lead to a lot of questioning towards Jerome Powell, who already stated that his policies alone are not going to directly change inflation. That's the economy in itself. So, with that said, a lot of hands are going to be thrown at Jerome Powell and the Fed. How are they dealing with these issues? Are they going to improve Americans' lives? Are we going to have to keep dealing with this? And typically, we're probably going to see some downside. That's just how I'm essentially seeing it right now. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an analysis of CPI reports and talk about how on earth does the stock market kind of react to them. Do we see more downside if the reports are really hot, or do we see some like green if they meet expectations? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to calculate what the market's going to do depending on what's reported on Wednesday. And that's what I'm going to be doing for tomorrow. But as of right now, be prepared for some choppy price action. Maybe we might get a slight bounce for the first hour or so, some green. But after that, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit of a bleed off again and we see a continuation of this trend. With that said, I want to actually transition into Elon Musk because Elon Musk liked this tweet right here from Sam Chorus. And this tweet right here states that a nice look at the EV adoption by country. And you could see that a lot of countries all over the world are seeing a big increase in their EV share of new cars. You can see that it's just going up in Austria, in Belgium, in China. And China is one of, if not the largest EV sectors. I mean, it is the largest EV market in the world. Denmark and Finland and the UK and the US, they're all seeing EVs growing and growing and growing. So I do see the EV market growing. And as a result of that, I see a lot of new sales and deliveries for Tesla. And I see some massive, massive bullish moves coming out for the future. With that said and done, I want to thank you all for listening. Please have a great rest of the day. Be prepared for tomorrow, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon, and peace out.